Hello and welcome to another episode of Trails into Reverie, the game that now has taken over my channel and rules it with an iron fist. We are here in Nord Highlands. Nord is the German word for north, and well, that checks out. We are in the north of Erebonia. Here we will be searching for the Courageous 2, because that's the lead we got from Z the last time we saw him. And it's always nice to be in Nord. Here in North we get a rearrangement of our group, yet again. Well, that is one of the interesting parts of Trails into Reverie. They mix it up constantly. I had from Nuclear 7 Ash and Altina in Heimdall, and we had Millium, Lucius and Elliot. Now we are in Nord Highland and we get Kurt and Moose back from Nuclear 7, and we get Gaius, which makes sense. He was born and raised here, even though he is a Gralsritter now and should be occupied with a lot of Gralsritter work. He is here to help us. I guess it makes sense. We also get Sarah and Emma. I don't know what connections they have with the Nord Highlands, but I guess Rean reached out to all old Class 7 members and we will get them occasionally mixed in and out, just to have a lot of variety in characters. Same happens in Lloyd's path. After his last mission, Wixia and Ellie wanted to take a break. He finds Theo when he arrived at the hospital with Wazi, who was the only guy who was accompanying him on the new mission. And later on he finds Tida and Agatha, which is a great team, to be honest. Now back to the Nord Highlands. We don't use the airship the Gralsritter Gaius could use to search the vast Nord Highlands because air beats me. And we use the horse, because, well, that's the traditional way to go around in the Nord Highlands, I guess. We also have quite a few creatures here on the Nord Highlands. There are these giant flying fishes, which you would expect in the mountains, I guess. One of the most stressful things with all these switching of characters and swapping in and out the whole group is rearranging the equipment and the quad setup, because of course even with characters you have used before, the quad setup is completely ruined after they left you for a while and are back. I try to give them more health and some useful spells, but of course focus my setup on stats, so I need more speed, more defense, more attack. For the casters, more ATS. But the things I get from the game whenever I get a new character in my group are EP cut, EP, shield and hit. Those things are the things you get from the game. Those things are the things you don't need at all. We discovered who C is at the end of the last chapter. I will not spoil that now, and I hope I can avoid it for the time being. When I have to spoil it, I will give you a warning under the video. Although, knowing who Z is raises more questions than it answers. So while the Pony Express is going on this side, the other two groups have a connected mission. One of them is raiding a military factory, the other one is raiding the overtaken Rosenberg doll studio, and they have to use the security panels at the same time to open the doors in front of them. And if you think that doesn't sound like a reasonable security system, we get into this very interesting situation with the connected terminals right after our second mandatory stay in the Reverie corridors. We have all three teams now in the Reverie corridors, and since they lose their short-term memory when they get in, and lose the memory of the Reverie corridors when they get out. Nobody knows who C is, although they all already have seen him. Isn't that fun? Of course, Rean's group already knows about the real identity of C. They found out after their little encounter in Heimdall, much to C's dismay. Rean is also now part of C's group. She was in Crossbell and extremely not bothered by the fact that Estelle and Joshua, who are both her brother and sister now by adoption, are nowhere to be found, because if two people are okay in times like these, it's probably those two. On the other hand, there is a huge question that's bothering me. What is the purpose of this special security system? And we already knew that Professor Novartis is part of the problem. He has his fingers in this, and although most of the technology is from the Black Workshop and the Black Workshop is discontinued, he might have taken some of it. The mind-altering mask that is used, some of the archaisms. Group Lloyd found Oz Mirage in the military factory, and that means that is going to be produced too. Now that could be the last piece in the puzzle, but there's also another thing that bothers me when I see that the 6th Angius could have done this all by himself. He just doesn't seem to be the type to be the evil mastermind behind a plan like this. Also, the Reverie corridor spoke of an anomaly, which hints that there is more involved than just the nutty professor. On top of all of this, the next mystery would be, why would Novartis even take over the Rosenberg studios? I know they weren't the best friends, and Rosenberg didn't like the old guy, but they were working together on a loose basis. The other thing is, this military factory is huge, and they didn't have that before they occupied Crossbell. How fast do they build stuff in here? I mean, the subway that was built to connect Michelin, the hospital and the city is also new. That wasn't part of From Zero to Azure. They really build stuff fast in this game. So all in all, the mysteries don't really get solved. For every answer we get, new questions pop up immediately. So what's next? This little path here will send me straight to 2 boss fights, one with each group. After that I have to get Rean's Pony Express on the same story level, and after that there will be the next mandatory visit to the Reverie corridors. That will be my cue to talk about that part of the game a little more. It's obvious they didn't want to have a pure dungeon crawler like they had with Trails in the Sky Part 3, because that's still seen as a very odd entry in the series. So we get the Trails in the Sky the Third gameplay mixed in between the regular Trails gameplay. The Reverie corridors have the flashback portals with small stories, who, interesting enough, at this point all happen to play between the events of the start of the game and the signing ceremony. They also have the same mini-game mechanic. They also have a copy of the quiz game from Trails in the Sky the Third. Since those two things intermix, we have very little in terms of side quests so far. I have found one in Heimdall in the museum, but that's about it. Which is fine, believe me, you got more than enough to do in this game without having extra side quests at every corner.
Ready?
Seeing that we have talked a lot of these Reverie corridors, but I didn't show all that much of them so far, I guess I should change that.
Here you go.
So I guess the next time I will look a little more into that part of the game. Until then, bye bye.
I saw that coming. I saw everything coming.